Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from Annie News. We're continuing with the solo leveling cook content. This is season 2, episode 9. I maybe have mentioned in the last video something that is potentially meant to be happens in the next one. So I binged solo leveling when I got back. I know I didn't spoil anything. I just said something that I just realized when I'm recording this now has no relevance to this episode. We've got another content coming out for this one, but when I got back, I was like so excited to carry on solo leveling. I was like, I need to kind of disconnect again from next episode and focus on this. And this is the one where he yells his mum. And I remember reading online, a load of people were complaining about this episode, and I feel like it's because people just want bam, 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 action, 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 all the freaking time, don't want the story. And this is why he's been doing it. He wants to save his mum. I get it. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Everything he's done has finally paid off. My God. And then the reasoning later, it'd be interesting to see if it's different for him to not want to go to the island. Get it? Like, he's had 4 years of trying to do this, so let's get on this.
This was the best scene in solo leveling so far. It's not like I enjoy seeing a strong man cry, but not only was the animation absolutely phenomenal, but everything from the tone, atmosphere, and voice acting all served to bring Sung's personal climax to life. I mean, as soon as the music hit, I knew they were going to treat this scene right.
Brilliant.
With what was essentially Sung's training arc now done and finished, though, the anime can finally get to the major conflict they've been teasing since Season 1.
Like the opening episode.
It may have come at the cost of various side characters and a little world building, but at least we know the Jeju Island arc will be animated to completion now. This does, however, bring in a whole lot of side characters on its own, so if the anime continues to focus solely on Sung and the few other characters closest to him, then I suspect all these new ones will get the Jinhee treatment, ignored completely or barely mentioned. The anime already skipped out on a whole fight between the translator and him, so it's that along with some other cutscenes that I'm gonna talk about here.
Cool.
I'll probably wait one more episode just in case that fight somehow comes up, but here's everything else the anime left out from the manhwa and web novel. Episode 21. It was all worth it. Covering chapters 88 to 91 from the manhwa and chapters 108 to 110 from the web novel.
It's about the normal amount.
With Baron dead and his shadows picking up the loot, Sung would be sitting at level 97 now. When he first entered, he was level 61, so this was by far his most valuable dungeon experience yet.
Oh, how much
Combine that with the bonus stats from item sets and quest rewards, and the buff to Sung's power is probably the biggest leap we've gotten so far. I mean, the completed demon set gave plus 10 to all his stats, on top of the plus 20 to perception and intelligence the ring itself gave. Add in the plus 30 from finishing the Demon Soul quest, and the total boost comes to plus 120.
Damn.
It was the equivalent of going up 24 entire levels. If we take a closer look at what each of the items do, the Demon King's daggers gave plus 220 attack when equipped, along with a set effect that would grant bonus damage equivalent to Sung's strength stats. So, as long as Sung was using both the Demon King's daggers together, his attack power would effectively be doubled. The longsword granted plus 350 attack on its own, along with a passive effect called Storm of White Flames. It was an AoE attack that activated every time the sword was swung, creating a violent thunderstorm that would destroy everything in front of it.
So it didn't even need to make contact with anything, just like as long as he swung it, it just went, that's crazy.
Now, when it came to creating the elixir, the system didn't tell him success was dependent on his intelligence until after the process was started.
Oh, that's stressful. So he did this. The initial decision was like, right, I need to just go for it. Whereas, like, he goes yes, and then he goes, right, okay. I'd hate that.
So, if you were wondering why Sung didn't just dump all his bonus stats into intelligence right there and then, it's simply because he didn't know.
No.
It was a notion that went to frustrate him more than you might think, so Sung could only consider himself lucky for having woken up to the importance of it.
That's crazy.
It's when the elixirs were finished that not all the ingredients were used up. Barely any of the world tree was shaved off, and quite a bit of blood still remained from the Demon King.
Oh.
The only reason Sung couldn't create more elixirs then was because the spirit water from earlier ran out first.
Right.
That being the case, Should there ever come a time when Sung needed to create the elixir again, all he needed to do was get more spring water.
Like, does that come up again? Oh my god.
It seemed
The anime didn't... what?
crafting system worked in a realistic manner like that.
What?
It only took accurate proportions based on what was needed. It's then that Iron would bring Kaisel over, finally receiving praise for doing good work for
Yeah,
once.
let's do the dragon.
Kaisel's
Let's
shadow
have it.
would then come
Yeah.
out at the night rank, making it the same level as Igris when he was first summoned.
Oh, sick.
It was a rank that went to surprise Sung at first, but when he considered this was the mount of the literal Demon King, it made sense that he wouldn't ride something weak. The last reward was the title of Demon Slayer, but whatever it provided remained unknown since Sung hadn't yet met the requirements to activate it.
Excuse me.
Now, when it came to the new skill Shadow Exchange, what Sung initially thought was a silly limitation with the cooldown, he later realized was more like a balance feature. When he saw how it worked and the way it teleported him practically instantly, he knew a power like that without a cooldown was way too OP. Luckily, the
Yeah, definitely. Oh my god. And it's going to be such a plot-orientated thing later.
cooldown wouldn't remain at 3 hours forever, since as the skill's level went up, that timer would go down. It was before Sung would test it, though, that in the manhwa he would barely say anything to Essel, then in the novel he wouldn't say anything at all.
At all? No.
If you thought the anime's goodbye was abrupt, well, the manhwa's was even more brief, and the novel didn't even have one at all.
Oh.
As soon as the fight was finished, Essel was never acknowledged after that.
No.
It was a truly heartbreaking way to treat who we all know is best girl.
Well, I'm not aware, but I'm looking forward to her coming back. She was very interesting.
The process of teleporting first involved zeroing in on the shadow he wanted to exchange with, then had him confirm that this was his target, after which a strong gravitational-like force would pull him into his own shadow. It was right as he was about to disappear in the novel, though, that a system message would indicate the dungeon was going to return back to its original appearance.
Oh, but... Oh, wait, how does that... Ah!
I couldn't tell you what specifically that meant, but I imagine it's a process similar to what happened in the subway dungeon. Sung would be separated from the overlapping world the system had made for him.
Oh, so maybe it reset... I don't know.
This then brings into question what happens to the demons,
Yeah.
but that's something
That's
I don't
instantly
think we'll
what
ever
my-
find out.
Wow.
They either stay, are returned back to their dimension, or are erased from existence.
Also told me here
In
again.
any case, post-teleportation revealed just how amazing this skill was, since with no adverse side effects and no time gap between transmissions, Sung could confidently say Shadow Exchange had near-limitless applications. He couldn't consider its full potential for too long, though, as what was important now was getting to his mother. Despite it being 10 PM and well past visitation hours, Sung would go anyway, since at this point nothing was gonna stop
Yeah,
him.
like, what the fuck,
This
yeah.
brings us to the meeting with the chairman, where him and Mr. Wu would be confirming the records Japan sent over. Based on their observations from a satellite capable of detecting mana, not only did it confirm the ants were in fact evolving, but it also confirmed every single ant did leave the tunnels during each of Korea's raids before. Sure, there were a few guardian ants left over, but compared to the entire army they usually dealt with, this was quite the confidence booster. The thing is, that special signal Wu mentioned would disrupt their hive mind, well, that was nothing more than an invention Japan had essentially said to just trust them on. There was no confirmation on Korea's end that this signal did in fact work, so everything regarding its effectiveness was all hearsay from the Japanese side.
Oh no.
Whether it was actually true or not was a different story, but for now, all Korea needed to focus on was killing the queen. It was definitely a simple objective when it came down to it, but with success relying heavily on the plans of everyone else, Chairman Go couldn't help but feel incredibly anxious about it. It was then that Mr. Go would sense a powerful magical presence, dictating the exact moment Sung had summoned Kaisel.
Oh.
Mr. Wu couldn't feel it himself, but the chairman had picked up on an incredibly brief burst of magical energy. And while he was curious to know where it was coming from, the only thing he could think about right now was the raid. Beck and Min would be shown to sense it too, making them think it was probably Choi and Cha duking it out. This brings us to their conversation, where a little more context was given for each of their motivations. First, what makes Min so unique isn't the fact he retired without injuries, it's the fact he retired despite being perfectly healthy. As the only S rank in the entire world to do so, Min had effectively given up on a type of life that no person had ever said no to before. I mean, it took a special type of person to turn down billions just because they didn't like being a hunter anymore. It's not like Min grew up rich either, so this was truly just a personal preference for him. It's this that triggered a slightly different reaction from the anime, since with Min initially believing Beck was trying to recruit him, he had actually become quite defensive when making his intentions clear. This wasn't what Beck had come for at all though, since what he really wanted to do was say goodbye. You see, there was no telling what was going to happen on the island, so this could very well be the last time
they
these two
see
see
each
each
other.
other. Now, though Min made it seem like Beck had a choice in the raid, when it came down to it, he really didn't. A guild could not decline a summons from the association. It was in return for the association accommodating every need the guild could ever have that the guild would then have to answer the association's call whenever. Should they choose not to, then emigration was likely the only choice after that. The problem is, it's likely no nation would ever want to recruit those hunters. Reason being that if a hunter ran away from a difficult raid once before, who's to say they wouldn't
Won't do
just
it again, yeah.
There would always be this lingering sense of a lack of commitment that a country just couldn't put their faith in. So, this was the cost of being a deserter, but it's not like Beck was planning to desert anyway. As for why Min isn't treated the same, well, the retirement of a hunter was completely different. His was a personal choice no one could fault him for. It's not like he was reaping the benefits of being a hunter anyway, so the responsibilities that came with it no longer applied to him. It's for this reason that he becomes so defensive when first sitting down to talk with Beck. He thought Beck was trying to recruit him despite Beck knowing there was no way he'd say yes. This was a stance best noted by the tremors in Min's hands, since despite being offered significant money from places like Fusion Construction, Min couldn't place himself into a hunter position anymore. He simply wasn't fit for a job where it was kill or be killed. So, whatever it was he went through before, clearly traumatized him to the point he couldn't deal with it now. All he wanted was a normal life in this all too abnormal world. Beck, on the other hand, carried expressions of eagerness, since the look in his eyes made it clear he was ready to kill as many ants as possible. In the novel, this is what led Min to the conclusion perhaps those who awakened were those who wanted to fight. Switching over to the hospital now, the whole scene with his mother was adapted perfectly, but the backstory regarding her scar could use a bit more context.
Right, interesting.
This wasn't an accident.
Yeah, because he was like, it's all my fault.
In the kitchen, but was rather a mistake in the public bathhouse. You see, after years of being taken care of by his mother, little Sung Jinu only wanted to return the favor. He wanted to emulate what his mother did to him so many times before. Being so young and lacking the ability to distinguish the temperature of water, though, led Sung to not realize the bubbling water he was carrying was practically boiling.
Oh no.
So he had carefully carried it over to his mother, then dumped it all on her since that was what Sung believed was normal. What neither the manhwa or anime showed after this was that Jinna was on his mom's lap as well.
Oh!
So, out of fear that some of this boiling water might end up on Jinna too, Sung's mom didn't move an inch. She barely flinched as she hunched over, enveloping the daughter beneath her.
Oh.
She didn't even make a sound either, so Sung didn't know he'd done anything wrong up until others in the bathhouse started running over. It was then that Sung would start to cry, but what he thought was for sure going to lead to a strict scolding instead became words which would be imprinted on him forever. Combine this with the fact his mom had taken care of them by herself, and Sung knew he owed her a debt that he could never repay.
Oh my god.
As much as he hated owing someone or someone owing him, his mom was the one person Sung would do anything for.
Damn.
It was also he could give back for what she gave him. Now, for Sung, whose hands remained steady even during numerous life and death battles, now they trembled out of fear that a mistake would cost the life of his mother.
Oh god.
He made sure to read the description over and over, ensuring he didn't miss a single thing about it. It was once those words were memorized that's when Sung would finally commit to giving it to her. The rest was a scene the anime did absolute justice to, especially the voice actor who killed it with the broken Daijobus here. This brings us now to a cutscene involving the director of the hospital, where for him an incredible opportunity just popped up. With this awakening being the first in history, it meant eyes would be focusing on him and his hospital interview.
This is prick behavior, isn't it? It's like, this is how people would be. Money. How can we monopolize on this prick?
Nationally, there was incredible value to be made from all the free marketing he was about to get. In the manhwa, we're shown this director not wanting his patient to leave, but aside from it being due to a medical anomaly needing to be shared with the medical community, the reason in the novel was instead this. Reporters around the world were going to want to hear how it was this patient recovered, so the publicity of the hospital depended on Sung's mom being present. Not only that, but the success of that publicity depended on whether they could figure out how she was cured to begin with. So, with the hospital's bright future being contingent entirely on her, the director suggested delaying her discharge as long as possible. That's when the doctor would mention doing so would cause issues, leading to the reveal the patient was Sung Jinu's mother. And with Sung Jinu being her registered guardian, he had requested her information be kept private. Now, normally the director would have disregarded such a request, but the moment he pieced together this was the same S-rank revealed several days ago, that's when he backtracked on everything. It wasn't because he was afraid Sung might try to harm him physically, but was rather due to the impact Sung would have on everything else. As an S-rank hunter whose connections extended to pretty much every branch of society, negative press would be just the start of how Sung could potentially ruin them. When it came to Jinna reuniting with her mom, to Sung this emotional scene was reward enough for all the hard work he put in. He knew for sure now everything he'd done wasn't in vain. It was then that something stuck inside him would melt away, relieving him in a way that made it seem like the burden of losing his mother had finally been lifted. It was shortly after that Sung would check his phone and come across a surprising news article talking about Kaisul. Though Sung had thought he was being discreet, it turns out quite a few people had seen him yesterday. This had led a lot of them to panic, since the sight of what could only be a monster led them to think that this was a dungeon break. The association hadn't even given a response on it, so a lot of people were speculating online on what this could be. Fortunately, no one had actually seen Sung, but he did feel bad since he could only imagine the anxiety a regular person would feel seeing a potential monster flying above them.
Damn, yeah, okay.
It was then that the association would call to talk, and what Sung believed was them trying to contact him about the dragon was instead the chairman wanting to meet up. This brings us to the meeting about the raid, where Chairman Go would start by showing CCTV footage of the attack. He would then explain how 300 people died before it was stopped, leading Sung to ask if Japan had been slow to respond. Mr. Go would reveal how it only took 30 minutes to respond, so in the short time it took for Japanese hunters to get there, one single ant was able to wipe out the entire village. It didn't matter how many times Mr. Go watched this, since every time he did, he couldn't help but shudder at the amount of damage which could be done to Korea. Like, if even Japan and their highly comprehensive hunter network couldn't handle it, then the disaster awaiting them was significantly worse. Now, the reason such a meeting was so urgent was because the Japanese Hunter Association was constantly demanding the official list of raid participants. Since Sung was yet to confirm his intent, the chairman...
Oh yeah, because they have the whole... this next episode...
was constantly delaying. Sung was of course well within his position to decline,
Keep
since
doing this.
with no guild affiliation and no employment with the association anymore, he wasn't bound by the responsibilities that a normal hunter would. It was right as he was about to give his answer, though, that's when he would sense what he initially thought was a dungeon break. Sensing it more revealed it wasn't the presence of monsters, but rather just a clash of raw magical energy. This was actually quite the incredible feat on its own, because the gymnasium Beck was in was designed to minimize the amount of magical energy leaked to the outside. In fact, where Sung could sense their energies clearly, Chairman Go couldn't sense a thing. That being the case, in a way this showed just how much Sung's power had grown. Not only could he detect the minor amount of energy that was leaked, but he was also able to distinguish the types of magic energies that were clashing. So, from Chairman Go's perspective, Sung's senses were very highly attuned now. Now, the reason Sung decided to go check it out himself was because a name was mentioned that every person around the world knew. Regardless of whether you were a hunter or not, at some point you would have heard the name Gyoto Ryuji before. So, the fact he was here in a building right next to them, well, the opportunity to meet him wasn't something
not
Sung
check him out,
wanted to miss out on. So, It's here in the gymnasium that things started to pick up, introducing the rest of Korea's S ranks along with the 10 participating on the Japan side. Considering how they're jumping straight into the 4v4 though, does make it seem like they're gonna be skipping quite a bit of it. In the off chance they don't though, I think this will make for a pretty good stopping point. To quickly give out some extra information though, Guildmaster Ma is the leader of the Fame Guild while Jong-soo is the leader of the Knights. Fame currently sits at 4th, whereas the Knights, although not possessing an S rank, do contain the highest number of A ranks in the country. But yeah, that's mostly everything from Season 2, Episode 9.
Nice.
The cut content here was mostly on the light side, but the amount they covered wasn't that much to begin with. I expect we'll start seeing a lot more in the coming episodes, especially if they plan to cover Jeju Island in the 4 episodes remaining. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see that, and if you like the video then leave a like. But anyway, don't forget to check out the new merch down below, and if you're looking for ReZero, I'll have a video out for that this weekend. Until next time though, ciao.
This is a Oh. I'm 3 episodes behind. My goodness, but he hasn't done one for a while, so interesting. Very interesting. But there has to be a... Anyway, thanks for watching.